And I'm sure most of our guests would have run through and read the very recent editorial that Mr. Kant put together. So what an absolutely fantastic piece where you argued how India is today at this very decisive point, and really, how is it that our EV transition is happening? How do you feel, sir, we can have the biggest mindset change, especially coming from the point of view of policy, to make sure that how is it that we in India can become a true global sustainability driver?
So the key is, to technologically leapfrog. We did this in digital identity. India did this in fast payments through UPI. We did this in LED bulbs. We've done this in renewable energy. We are already doing over 270 gigawatt of renewable energy. We are way ahead of other countries.
Right.
And I think the next big pole vaulting that India has to do is in electrical mobility. And I think it's important that we must have massive disruption in India. Actually, I'm very clear in my mind that we should lay down a clear roadmap. We should clearly say that 50% of the cars which will be on road by 2028, all new registrations should be electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And by 2030, we should absolutely stop fresh registration of ICE vehicles. Secondly, we should not allow promotion of outdated and outmoded intermediate technologies like hybrid. We must be absolutely clear that the final technology is electric mobility with zero emission towards the end. And therefore, we should focus on the final technology and not intermediate technologies.
Right.
I'm absolutely clear on that. And therefore, my view is that two-wheelers, three-wheelers, by 27 and no more fresh registration of ICE engine, two-wheelers, three-wheelers. All of them should be electric. By 2030, all four-wheelers must go electric. And we should clearly, like the PM e-drive, that buses and lorries and trucks should all be electric from 2030 onwards. The country should actually mandate that. And mandate that, it's very important that in the context of the West Asian crisis, we are importing 180 billion worth of fossil fuel.
Yeah.
The more you import fossil fuel, you are losing your energy independence.
Right.
You are dependent on other countries. Whereas in electric vehicle mobility, you become energy independent.
True.
The other thing India must do is to really push for battery cell manufacturing in India.
Right.
You can't shift one form of dependency to another form of dependency. And therefore, battery manufacturing will be the key.
Right.
And the third is permeate this whole country with fast chargers all over. Those three things. Mandate, and this should come from the Bureau of Energy Efficiency,
right,
through the CAFE norms, push for chargers all over, and ensure that we technologically leapfrog in the years to come. The country should be absolutely clear, much like we've overtaken the rest of the world in digital identity and fast payment through mobile, we are going to do this in electric mobility.
Very interesting, because you mentioned how unless we have a mandate, we don't see things happening. And with the timeline you've given, we have about 3 years. And I think we can collaboratively work on those timelines. Mr. Kant, I'd like to ask you, when you talk about, especially from the policy making segment, when we talk about how is it that we can keep the industry in mind, how is it that we can keep the government in mind, and how is it that we can come up with customer-friendly policies as well? Because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, consumers also benefit. And I'm sure I'm going to see house full of you raise your hands up to that. But speaking from the point of view of the consumers, how do you feel that we can move faster, keeping all these three elements in mind?
So, when the GST was being structured and written, at that point of time we ensured, and GST is a state and a central tax, we ensured that for electric vehicle the tax will be 5% and 48% for hybrid and other vehicles. So GST, we had a differential of 43%. Understand this. We consciously made EV cheaper. Now, state taxes, the states must be clear that they need to have better air quality. If Delhi is the most polluting capital in the world, and if we have over 65 of our cities in the worst 100 polluting cities, it's incumbent upon the politicians, administrators, citizens to ensure that we provide a better livelihood for our citizens.
Right.
And therefore, we need to clean up our cities, and we need to get rid of fossil fuel. That is critical. The third point is that we are a very big importer of fossil fuel. And we need to get rid of our dependency on fossil fuel, because another crisis, you shoot up your import bill from 180 to 300 billion dollars, and rupee starts weakening.
Yeah.
We try and understand this. And that is why the future is always in the ultimate technology. And I make this point that we did this leapfrogging in UPI, India is capable of leapfrogging. And you need to leapfrog in electric mobility, and I'm really glad that Mr. Brar and Mr. Kapoor here have taken the initiative to do this discussion today. Because we must understand that, when America started urbanizing, its car companies, Ford, General Motors, actually bought over the railway companies and destroyed them. So that on the American highways, cars could run. And America was made as a country for cars and not for people and not for cycles. Now I'm saying you need cars.
Yeah.
But you need cars which are electric vehicle oriented, where there is zero tailpipe emission, zero level. If we introduce, today this technology disruption has happened in the world. But legacy car makers, like those who manufacture hybrid or combustion vehicles, have a vested interest in ensuring that India does not leapfrog.
Right.
But this leapfrogging is inevitable. And that is why today BMW is selling more cars in India than Mercedes-Benz. It sells more cars because the consumer wants EV cars.
Yeah.
Mercedes' failure to provide a cutting-edge EV model means that it will die out in India. And those manufacturers who don't keep bringing cutting-edge EV models in India will fail to attract consumers. The consumer wants the best technology. The consumer wants zero tailpipe emission. The consumer wants to drive the EV. Outdated models will die, and that is why Tata's went in for EV vehicles. That is why Mahindra's went in for EV vehicles. I drive a Mahindra EV. And sooner, when I become a little more richer, I'll buy a BMW EV. And look at Sajjan Jindal. He bought over the MG Motors plant, and he's putting up a new plant in Shendra, Bitkin in Aurangabad, which is all electric vehicles. So he says that EV is the moment, and I will seize it, and I will disrupt Maruti here in India by making only EV vehicles. Right. And that, to my mind, is the real future. Look at China.
Right.
Look at China. 100 EV manufacturers in the Chinese market, all competing with each other.
And all doing well.
So you have Xiaomi, you have BYD, you have another company called Geely which has come in, and Geely says, I will beat BYD in the market. But they've gone and penetrated global markets all over the world.
Right.
So all free markets, for some days, through protectionism, tariffs, you will control, but eventually efficiency, electric mobility will win the world. There is just no doubt in my mind.
But sir, Mr. Kant, we have spoken numerous times about the requirement for better charging infrastructure. In fact, even in this conversation, you've spoken about it. All three of you have spoken about it. But at the end of the day, it's not just the auto industry's role, it's not just the consumer's role, but in this day and age of smart cities, how do you think we need to have more and more state governments working towards it, more and more companies, private companies working towards it? How is it that we can channel more people to come towards and create that difference in all cities in India?
You know, first of all, to your question, when you asked your customers whether they'll prefer speaking with their spouse or with the car, the gentleman there raised his hand and he said if it's a BMW car, he'll prefer to speak with the car rather than the spouse.
True.
Yeah. So, you know, the charging is very critical.
Right.
But, you know, the important thing is that the range anxiety which Indians had, we've been able to get rid of it because the battery range has increased very substantially. If you've taken the battery range to about 500, then, you know, we normally do about 250 kilometers a day, and you're able to then do about 500 kilometers or at least minimum of 400 kilometers. So that range anxiety must get out of our mind. That's important.
Right.
There should be no fear of range anxiety, especially if you're using a BMW car, to my mind. Number two is that it's very, very important to know that on the national highway network, we've got fast chargers all over in India now. I mean, one of the remarkable things that's happened, and I've been traveling with an EV car on the national highway, there are a lot of fast chargers all over, so we don't have to worry. All over. But I would still say three things. One is that the government of India should clearly, and the state governments must mandate that all housing societies must have electric fast chargers. You know, you can't say that this housing society is not willing to put up an electric charger. That has to be an inherent component of our urban development process. Number one. Number two, every road and every highway that we make, we must have fast chargers. And thirdly, all chargers must be interoperable on an app. The app must be so good that it should be able to tell you where you are and which is your closest fast charger. You have apps, but they should become far more efficient, and all chargers must be interoperable. Also, the last point I want to make is that there's a lot of disruption happening in terms of fast chargers, and India should really accelerate the pace of technological evolution on fast charging. That's critical.
Thank you so much for sharing that thought. And Mr. Kant, you spoke about how today we have this amazing infrastructure that's upcoming. We have amazing roads. So if you were to go on a long drive, which Indian city would you prefer doing that in your soon-to-becoming BMW EV?
Well, I'll bypass all the cities and go for good adventure into the hilly tracts of Uttarakhand. There's no point going into the Indian cities, just bypass them.
Right, okay, thank you for that. Mr. Dhruv Gandhi, if you could just wave and say hi. We're taking the first question from you, and it's for you, Mr. Kant. If India was and wants most vehicles to become electric in the coming decade, how do you think we can handle the massive amount of lithium battery waste that has been generated, and how can we continue to do so in the future?
So, you know, the important thing is that technology is getting better and better in several of these things. And the second is, you know, you have very close to here, you have a very young startup called Loham, which does recycling of lithium in a very big way. And India, you know, what has happened in the world is, and it's important for all of us to understand this, that, you know, the batteries technologies has been monopolized by China. And what China does is it reduces the price of lithium batteries. But the critical mineral prices, it keeps increasing. And it increases that because they've also mastered the processing technology of critical minerals. And that is why it's very important for India to actually master the processing technologies of critical minerals. So in the years to come, it's not only recycling which is important, which many of our young startups are doing, but also master the processing technology. You need energy independence. You need independence on processing technology of critical minerals. You need independence on semiconductors.
Right.
And that is why India has gone in for 12 companies now which are actually doing chip manufacturing in India. We used to do a lot of chip design in India, but the future of the world, and there's a new book called Chips Wars, which all of you must read. It's written by a professor from Fletcher. All future wars, all future automobiles, all future planes, everything will be driven by chips.
Right.
And that is why India took the lead of getting these 12 manufacturers to do chip manufacturing in India.
I'd like to come to you, Mrs. Sinha, and Arvind Thakur, who also happens to be the owner of the first BMW i4 that was launched in India. Thank you so very much, sir. Let me tell you, he's also one of the first few guests who joined us at the event, so congratulations for that punctuality. So, Mr. Sinha, Mr. Kant, either of you can take this. AI, no doubt, he feels, has transformed the way that we are using cars and the way that, we've created that disruption in terms of efficiency and experience. But how do you think AI infrastructure today requires more and more data centers which consume, again, energy, and how is it going to affect the environment?
Well, that's a very, very important question. It's an important question because today data centers and AI consume more energy than the entire city of New York, and they will be in a couple of years consuming more energy than the entire country of Japan. And therefore, it's very important that AI is always, you have convergence with clean technologies. And one of the key advantages, the other day there was a debate and discussion and somebody said that actually India is lagging behind in AI. But we should all be very clear that, AI, artificial intelligence, for chip manufacturing, you need lithography machines which are controlled by one company in the world, which is ASML of Netherlands. You need GPUs which are controlled by NVIDIA.
Right.
And for all this, you need helium gas for making chips, which is controlled by Qatar Gas, and if Strait of Hormuz is choked, then you will not be able to get helium. So we are living in a globally interglobal world where chips come from somewhere, lithography machine comes from somewhere else, and gas, helium coming from somewhere else. Now, India can't be left behind because India controls 20% of the data of the world. Artificial intelligence is driven by data.
Right.
20% of that data comes from India. And therefore, logically, 20% of the data centers will be put up in India. Secondly, if you look at the Stanford AI Index, which has just recently come out, what it shows is that India is the only country actually which is a recipient of talent in AI from the rest of the world. Talent has come back to India for the 2,117 global capability centers that India set up.
Right.
So talent has come back. And the third point I want to make is that there's no other country which has 270 gigawatt of renewable energy, which India has. And therefore, the future data centers will all be established in India because of renewable energy. And actually, to my mind, we should raise our target of 500 gigawatt of renewable energy to 1,500 gigawatts because Microsoft, Amazon, Google are all putting up data centers in India, many of them in Vizag, and all of this should be driven only by renewable energy. And therefore, it's to this very important question, data centers are critical, but they should be driven by clean energy, and India is the only place which can provide you renewable energy for the future.